Our next speaker, which is Jennifer Shahade. She's not an academic, she's not a researcher, but she has a very special expertise and approach to chess, because she's a promoter of chess. She does that as an author, as a presenter. She is very inventive with projects. And she has also another field of expertise, another game that she's doing, very similar things, presenting, competing. I didn't mention before, she's also a chess grandmaster, so she's also a competitive chess presenting. Of course, bringing poker into schools, into primary schools, that's, let's say, a bit challenging. Jennifer is ready now, and she brought us something that she has been working with in the United States, Yami chess. She will talk about this, but she will also talk about the gender aspect. Many of us have first noticed her as the author of a book already several years ago, like 8-9 years ago, Chess Bitch, where she talked about gender differences and yeah, in chess, which are quite obvious. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. I actually have a wireless mic. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, actually somebody asked me last night, they said they liked the title of my book, and of course I was like, which one? And they meant the one that is more appropriate for children, which I'm actually giving out as prizes for the English Girls Championship, which is going on right now, and that's Play Like a Girl. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about math and chess. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and not only because I was invited to this conference. I was actually thinking about it before that, and that's probably because I've gotten involved with this project called Yami Chess, which is a cartoon and a storybook about Kami, who's this talented chess prodigy who's introduced into this magical world of chess. And in order to defeat the enemy Chrome Munchers, he has to solve all of these chess and math problems. And an example of one of the math problems here is, you know, they're not always directly related to chess. A lot of times they're actually related to the story. And this is one that's going to come up again and again, and it involves sugar, because I just have a weakness for chocolate and cakes and all that kind of stuff. And in this case, actually Kami's sister is challenged to figure out how many chocolates there are in a chessboard, and she has to figure out how many squares there are on the chessboard, and then divide and multiply. So you're kind of using these basic math skills while you're learning chess and coloring in the book. Now, personally, my story with math is I was pretty good at it in high school, but I actually moved on to literature and arts in college and actually never took another math class in college. So a lot of people, when they ask me about chess, they're like, wow, you must be really good at math, so difficult. And I'm like, well, I was okay at math. But that's changed a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the most interesting things that comes up to me immediately when I think about math and chess is the point system, which we teach kids when they're starting to play, how much each piece is worth. Of course, that's a very valuable thing to teach kids because they're attracted to it immediately, even though it's not intrinsic to chess, right? It's not like you can win because you have more points than your opponent, but it's still like a great way to get them to play stronger. So the only problem with this is that sometimes I find that when kids become stronger, I have to unteach them aspects of it, especially my adult students who learned it and who come back and want to get even stronger in chess. And that's because, of course, it's simplified when we teach people their work is worth 5 and then a knight and a bishop are worth 3, because what are the chances that all this data would create these perfect whole numbers, right? Grandmaster Larry Kaufman, he famously studied the data of hundreds of thousands of chess games and looked and tried to come up with more accurate numbers for like the really strong players. And one thing he found is that for knights and bishops, really you got to use more than 3. That's really the first thing you realize, because usually 2 pieces are worth more than a rook and a pawn, especially in the opening and the middle game. So this kind of data really fascinated me, and it particularly fascinates me because I feel like it could change slightly, based on how strong people play, right? So that's why Kaufman used really strong games, but maybe it'll change even more in the future. So that's one thing that really interests me regarding math and chess. The other thing is this world of chess problems. Really, when I got into chess very young, I was pretty bad at it at first compared to my brother and my dad. They were both chess masters, and I was only rated like 1400 for years. I would say that in a way I wasn't quite as competitive as my brother and my dad, which is something people often say about women, that they don't have the killer instinct. But there's actually some other entryway into being really good at chess. There's multiple roads to Rome, as they say. You can be wanting to crush your opponents all the time, and that is important to some aspect, but you can also fall in love with this world of chess problems and chess beauty and creativity. And that's something that definitely happened to me when I was about 14. I discovered this world of chess problems, and at that point I really became addicted to chess. This is one of my favorites. In fact, when I was thinking about making this presentation, I wanted to come up with some of my favorite chess problems, and my first hypothesis was, well, of course knight is the best chess piece, because it moves unlike any other chess piece. So probably my favorite problems will all be dealing with the knight. But then when I was thinking, I was like, well, actually, that's not true. Most of the pieces that I'm thinking of are just straight lines, rooks, bishops, most of my favorites, because the pleasure you get from finding the solution is quite spectacular. And I promised that there would be multiple suites in this lecture, and of course, this is one of them. Somebody recognize this problem? Yeah, it's the Saavedra problem, which features a gorgeous under promotion, so look it up later. So good. I get shivers every time I show it to somebody who's never seen it before. This one is the ready problem. That's also a fantastic one. And what I like about this one is it teaches you that diagonal lines are just as short as straight lines, which is, I guess, paradoxical because we're used to walking in straight lines, well, most of the time. And therefore, like, it just seems so weird that somehow the center of the board and that diagonal line is just as close as a straight line. So a kind of geometric motif, which I think math and chess has a lot to do with. There's not a lot of arithmetic, multiplying and addition in chess, but there's quite a lot of geometry. And of course, mostly with these linear pieces. And that's an example of like how slow it is if you were to walk in straight lines. Whereas if you try to walk in the diagonal, you're really doing a better job here. Oh, this is another really great one, which again, you see these bishops and these rooks, just these pieces alone. I can't go through the whole solution because I'm going to run out of time, but a really stunning one in which you see that the pieces are actually kind of creating a bit of a triangle here in the solution. You start by moving your bishop to the e4 square, threatening checkmate. Now black's only way to try to save the game is to offer a stalemate. So you're putting the queen on a1, if you take it, it's stalemate. So instead, rook goes to b1, and it's just this great little geometric motif of triangles. So now that we've talked a lot about lines and why I like these straight lines in chess, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my interest in art in chess. So in addition to there being a lot of art within the game itself, in the problems that I love, there's also a lot of artists who have explored chess, most famously Marcel Duchamp. I'm actually on the board of the World Chess Hall of Fame, which is in St. Louis. It's right across the street from the very famous St. Louis Chess Club, which just had the strongest tournament in history with the Sinkfield Cup. So we're constantly coming up with exhibitions that highlight art. And again, it's because I think that sometimes by focusing on the artistic aspects of chess, you can get people interested who weren't interested in it before. And here's my favorite piece that I did that involved art and chess is hula chess. I actually talked about this in another presentation. I gave a TED talk, and I talked about hula chess in reference to exercising in chess at the same time. Because, there's famously chess boxing. Hula chess, you're also kind of like working out, hula hooping, and you're playing chess at the same time. But unlike chess boxing, you actually do them both at once. So I feel like it's more effective. I mean, who has time to play chess and work out, right? So that's one aspect, but really like the more artistic aspect of it is that in chess there's all these straight lines, diagonal lines, and in art it's a lot of times it's not about winning, it's not about that linear activity, it's about circles and like infinity, right? A never-ending game. So I'll show you. I think I can make this work. One second. I think I have to like click on it to play. Featuring hooping and chess at the same time. It's one of my favorites. I'll try to make it work for you guys a little later if possible. Another piece that I did. Now, sorry. Yeah, I'm just trying to get it to go back to the slideshow because I tried to play the video. So I wanted back to talk to you about roulette chess, which is kind of an introduction to poker, which Stefan mentioned as well. And if you can play the video, that would be awesome too, but if it doesn't work, it's okay. So the video is the slide before this, yeah. Oh, there we go. So, yeah, this is an excerpt from the video, and it actually features a Marcel Duchamp game, which ends in perpetual check. So I really wanted to show that kind of circular aspect of chess. Well, actually, this girl is a dancer. She doesn't play chess. So she taught me hula hooping because I was hopeless at it at first. The hoop just kept falling to the floor over and over and over again. So, thank you. I knew we could make that work. And now whatever, you can get that up. And another piece that I did is roulette chess, which is a combination of chess and chance. As Stefan mentioned, I'm into poker as well as chess, and there's actually quite a lot of very direct math in poker. A lot of probability calculations that you have to do. And so it kind of interests me that in chess, which is such a complex game, which is in our keynote presentations, we talked about how math and chess are so related in terms of the brain and how it functions, and yet there's not really a lot of arithmetic in chess, right? But in poker there's quite a lot, and I had to actually humble myself and go back and learn some math concepts because of poker. In particular, I teach a student who wrote The Mathematics of Poker. He's a brilliant mathematician. He's also my chess student. And at some point I was asking him about, here's another example. This is a chess and poker simul I did in PokerStars headquarters in Isle of Man. And this is another game that I play a lot. It's a variant of poker called Open-Faced Chinese. This game has a ton of math in it. It's like all probability theory. And it's very unexplored, so I had to come up with some of the new math by myself. And so in order to do that, I had to talk to Bill, who's my friend, who's this brilliant mathematician. Like, well, I didn't take advanced math. And he's like, okay, well, here's how we're going to solve it. Think about these jelly beans, right? And I'm like, I don't want to think about jelly beans. Just explain it to me in poker. And he's like, no, there's no way I can explain it to you if I don't use jelly beans. So finally, like, I listened to him and I get it. And it's a very humbling experience for me because it took me a while to figure out what he was talking about and how to envision this math. And of course, this relates to the way that adults feel when I try to teach them chess. It's very difficult teaching adults chess because they don't want to think abstractly as much. They want shortcuts and rules. Usually shortcuts and rules are great because you can learn more quickly that way. But unfortunately with chess, it's usually not that good because it's really that abstract, very difficult thinking that makes you into a better player. So when I learned that math concept about jelly beans, it taught me, it made my brain hurt, it was frustrating, I didn't want to do it. And I was like, yeah, this is how it feels. And that's how it should feel. And that, I think, is maybe one of the reasons why there are all of these links. And so, yeah, I wanted to just close with another example from Yami Chess, which is a little bit of a joke about how one character is saying that, well, the probability that white wins should be 50%, and the probability that black wins in chess should be 50%, because we all start with the same armies. Of course, that's not true in chess because it's a game of skill. It's a game of pure skill, unlike poker and other games which are often very luck-oriented. And in reality, what creates all this luck and math, and basic math in games like poker and roulette, is the fact that there's luck, right? So the math is creating probability and chance. So when I have something like roulette chess or dice chess, they used to play chess with dice, and with my roulette chess also you had to spin the wheel to figure out what piece you were going to move. So these types of variants are putting math into chess in a very much more direct way, instead of these like geometric motifs that I was describing. So it interests me that when people say, wow, like you must do so much math because you play chess, it's actually kind of the opposite, in that a lot of the reason that chess is such a pure skill game is because there's none of this type of math and probability. So I find that kind of interesting and something to continue thinking about. Anyway, it's really been a pleasure to be at this conference, because just as I'm getting more into trying to figure out math, I got invited here, so I think it's a sign, and I'm going to continue trying to learn more advanced math. And yeah, thanks you very much to Stefan and John for inviting me. Now, I'd like to see if you guys have any questions.